Hi, this is Anil and welcome to the video tutorial for the Learning Lad on C++ programming. So in this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to explicitly overload the generic functions. Even though a generic function overloads itself as needed, you can explicitly overload it too. And it is called as explicit specialization. If you overload a generic function, that overloaded function overrides the generic function relative to that specific version. If it is confusing, don't worry, let's begin with the example. Alright, here first we're gonna write a generic function which is gonna take one or two parameters, and it's gonna do something. Let's say template, the template keyword, and then the less than and greater than symbol, and we need to write the keyword type name, and then we need to give a name for the identifier or the generic type, let's say t, and then we need to write the return type of our generic function. It's gonna be void, and then we need to write the function name. Let's say what you got. We are using display too many times, and just a new name. All right, then this function is going to take a parameter which is of this generic type t. So I'm going to refer t here, and let's say a variable x, and inside this function we're just going to say inside what you got generic function, and then we're gonna end this line, and then I'm gonna use another cout, and I'm just gonna say I got x and equal to, and then just insert x, and let's end this line. Alright, now we have a generic function, what you got, and it's gonna take one parameter. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna write another function which is not gonna be a generic function, but the name of that function is gonna be what you got, and it's gonna take a integer parameter. So what I can do is I can copy this full statements, and I can write here, and this function is not gonna be a generic function, it's gonna be a normal function, and the parameter is gonna be of type integers. And here we're just gonna say normal function. I can group this what you got, and here also. Alright, now we have two functions. One is a generic function, another one is a normal function with the same name and same number of parameter. So here all of us know that when we write a generic function, it can take any type of data. Here this what you got can take any type. It can take integers, floating point, character, string, any type. The another normal function which we have written can take only integer type. So what happens when you call this what you got function in our main function? So let's see that, and before that we need to do the function prototyping. So I'm gonna copy this, paste it here, and then I'm gonna copy this one and paste it here and add the semicolon. Alright, now in our main function what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call what you got, and then I'm gonna pass, let's say, a floating point value 23.456, and then I'm gonna call it again what you got, and I'm gonna pass, let's say, 22 integer value, and then I'm gonna call it again, and this time I'm gonna pass a string value, let's say Anil Shetty. Now what we have done here is we have written a generic function, and we have written a normal function with the same name and for a specific data type. Or in other words, what we are doing is we are overloading this generic function with a normal function. When we overload a generic function, that overloaded function, here in this case it's gonna be this function, overrides the generic function relative to that specific version. If you call a function what you got and pass integer value, this function will be called, because it overrides the integer version of this template function or the generic function. Alright, now I'm gonna save this, I'm gonna build and run this. Okay, we have an error. Okay, that's because of this stream insertion operator, and here also. Right, I'm gonna save this I'm gonna build and run this, and now you guys can see inside what you got generic function. That's because we have passed our floating point value in this first call, and then we passed our integer value, and that's why it says inside what you got normal function in the second call, and it says I got 22, the value which we have passed. And again we know when we pass a string value inside what you got generic function, and it says I got Anil Shetty. So here you guys can see this function is overriding the integer version of this generic function, and this is called explicit specialization. We are explicitly overloading a generic function for a specific version. Alright, the next thing that I want you guys to teach you is about another syntax that is used to denote the explicit specialization of a function. Here what you can do is we can use the template keyword in this normal function. It should be template, and then less than and greater than symbol, and we're gonna leave it empty. We're not gonna write any type name or any generic type here. And then we need to write the return type, then the function name, and then here we're gonna use the less than and greater than symbol again, and we're gonna write the type of data that this function is gonna be working. This is another version of denoting the explicit specialization of a function. So both are valid. Let's gonna build and run this. Okay, we got an error, and if I open up the logs, it says undefined reference to what you got, and okay, that's because of this function prototyping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna paste it here, and I'm gonna save this, and I'm gonna build and run this, and now you guys can see it works as it was working before. So this new style is helpful if you're writing a very large program, and when you see this code, you'll come to know that okay, you are explicitly overloading a generic function here if you use this new syntax. So this is it, guys. This is about the explicit overloading of generic functions in C++. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.